The war room smelled of burning electronics and stale air. Fleet Commander Thax dragged his clawed finger across the holographic display, watching as dozens of star systems blinked red on the tactical map. Each red dot represented another world that had fallen to the hegemony's might over the past century. Soon, there would be one more. "This cannot be serious," Admiral Corvin muttered from across the metal table. His gray skin looked paler than usual under the harsh lights of the command center. 12 ships? For an entire planetary conquest? Thax's 3 eyes focused on the smaller alien with obvious irritation. The fleet commander stood nearly twice as tall as his subordinate, his blue-black carapace gleaming with the medals of 100 successful invasions. "The intelligence reports are clear, Corvin. This world poses no threat. Their technology is primitive. Their military forces are scattered and weak. We could take this planet with 6 ships if needed." The holographic display shifted, showing a blue and green world spinning slowly in the darkness of space. Earth looked peaceful from this distance. Its single moon hung nearby like a gray companion, unmarked by industry or military installations. No orbital defenses were visible. No energy shields protected the major population centers. To experienced hegemony commanders, it looked like every other backwater planet they had conquered. "Look at these readings," Thax continued, manipulating the display to show various data streams. "Their most advanced weapons still use chemical explosives. They have barely achieved faster-than-light communication. Most of their population centers have no defensive systems at all. This will be over in 3 days, maybe less." Admiral Corvin studied the intelligence reports that floated in the air between them. The humans had been under observation for nearly 50 years, though they had never detected the surveillance probes. That alone should have told the hegemony everything they needed to know about human awareness and technology. The probes had recorded everything from human wars to their entertainment broadcasts. The data painted a picture of a species that fought constantly among themselves, had recently developed nuclear weapons, and showed no signs of unified planetary defense. Their internal conflicts suggest they will not cooperate against an external threat, Thax explained, pointing to various hotspots on the planet's surface. "See these regions? They have been at war with each other for decades. When we arrive, they will be too busy fighting each other to mount effective resistance." The fleet commander pulled up recordings from the surveillance probes. Images of human soldiers flickered in the air, showing men and women carrying what looked like simple projectile weapons. Their aircraft moved through the sky without energy shields or plasma weapons. Their largest ships floated on the planet's oceans, powered by primitive engines and armed with basic missiles. "They still use metal bullets," Corvin observed, though his voice carried doubt rather than confidence. "But Admiral, these readings show unusual patterns in their behavior during conflicts. Their adaptation rate during their own wars seems remarkably fast." Thax dismissed the concern with a wave of his massive hand. "Adaptation means nothing when the technology gap is this wide. Our shields can stop anything they can throw at us. Our weapons can level their cities from orbit. Our ground forces wear armor that their bullets cannot penetrate. This is not adaptation we are discussing, Corvin. This is simple mathematics." The hologram shifted again, displaying the 12 ships that would comprise the invasion force. Each vessel was over 2 kilometers long, equipped with plasma cannons that could burn through mountains and troop transports that could deploy thousands of soldiers. The smallest ship in the fleet carried more firepower than the entire human military combined, according to the intelligence estimates. "Standard protocol applies," Thax announced to the other officers who had gathered in the war room. "Orbital bombardment of major population centers will demonstrate our superiority and encourage immediate surrender. Ground forces will secure the primary resource extraction sites and establish work camps for the surviving population. Military resistance will be eliminated quickly and efficiently." The other commanders nodded their agreement. This was how the hegemony had conquered over 300 worlds. The formula worked because it was based on overwhelming technological superiority and coordinated planning. Resistance movements rarely lasted more than a few weeks against hegemony. Forces and most worlds surrendered after the first demonstration of alien firepower. "What about their space-based assets?" asked Commander Velt, the youngest officer present. "The surveillance shows they have several orbital stations and numerous satellites." "Civilian installations," Thax replied. "Research stations and communication, satellites. Nothing that poses a military threat. We will disable them during the initial attack to prevent them from coordinating any resistance efforts." Admiral Corvin studied the data one more time, focusing on reports from other species that had encountered humans in deep space. The encounters had been rare and brief, but several reports mentioned unusual human responses to threats. Humans seemed to escalate conflicts quickly and showed little regard for personal safety when protecting others. They also demonstrated an unsettling tendency to continue fighting even when facing certain defeat. "Commander," Corvin said carefully, "I recommend we at least bring additional support ships, not for the initial assault, but as reserves in case the situation develops unexpectedly." The war room fell silent. Other officers looked between Thax and Corvin, wondering if the admiral was questioning the fleet commander's judgment. In hegemony military culture, such challenges could be dangerous for the officer making them. Thax's three eyes narrowed as he stared at his subordinate. "Are you suggesting that I do not understand how to plan a simple planetary conquest, Admiral?" "Not at all, Commander. I am simply suggesting that humans may not respond to conquest in the same way as other species we have encountered. Every species believes they are unique, Corvin. Every species thinks they have some special quality that will save them from the hegemony. Every species discovers they are wrong." Thax turned back to the holographic display, effectively ending the discussion. "We launch in 6 days, 12 ships, standard protocol. This conversation is over." As the other officers filed out of the war room, Admiral Corvin remained behind, still studying the intelligence data. Something about the humans troubled him, though he could not identify exactly what. Their technology was indeed primitive, and their military forces appeared disorganized. But the surveillance recordings showed something else, something harder to quantify. When humans faced impossible odds, they did not always retreat. Sometimes they attacked. The coffee had gone cold hours ago, but Colonel Amy Davis kept drinking it anyway. The bitter liquid was the only thing keeping her awake as she stared at the radar screens that showed impossible readings. 12 massive objects had appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system 3 hours ago, moving toward the planet at speeds that should not have been possible. "Ma'am, we're getting responses from civilian ships throughout the system," reported Lieutenant Brady from his station. "Commercial freighters, research vessels, even some private yachts. Everyone's responding to the emergency broadcast." Davis nodded, though she wondered what good civilian ships could do against whatever was coming toward Earth. The objects were enormous, each one the size of a small city. They moved in perfect formation, completely ignoring all attempts at communication. Every major space agency on Earth had tried to make contact. The response had been silence. "What's our status on the orbital platforms?" she asked. 17 commercial stations have been retrofitted with defensive systems," Brady replied. "It's not much, but the engineers have been working for 2 days straight. They've mounted mining lasers, construction charges, and even some old military hardware from the decommissioned defense satellites. 3 days ago, the approaching ships had been detected by deep space monitoring stations. At first, scientists thought they might be asteroids or comets, but the objects moved with purpose and maintained formation. When the radar signatures were analyzed more carefully, the truth became undeniable. They were artificial, they were massive, and they were heading directly for Earth. Dr. Richard Stone burst into the command center, carrying a tablet covered with calculations and diagrams. His hair looked like he had been running his hands through it for hours, and his lab coat was stained with coffee and marker ink. 'Colonel, we've identified their propulsion system,' he said breathlessly. It's some kind of space-time manipulation technology. They're literally bending space around their ships to achieve faster-than-light travel. But here's the important part. The energy signatures suggest their technology is vulnerable to electromagnetic interference. Davis looked at the scientist with the first hope she had felt in days. Are you saying we can disrupt their ships? Possibly. We've been analyzing every piece of data we can get from the space monitoring stations. Their ships emit a very specific frequency pattern to maintain their propulsion. If we can generate the right kind of interference, we might be able to disable their engines or at least slow them down. Before Davis could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the command center. The main display screen lit up with incoming signals from observation posts around the world. The alien ships had reached Earth's orbital space and were beginning to spread out into attack formation. "Colonel, we're getting reports from all major cities," another technician called out. "These ships are huge. The one over New York is casting shadows across entire city blocks." Davis grabbed the emergency communication system and opened channels. To military commanders worldwide. "This is NORAD Command. All forces, prepare for defensive operations. Civilian ships, maintain positions around orbital installations. We don't know what they want, but we're not going down without a fight." The first attack came without warning. Brilliant beams of light erupted from the alien ships, striking major population centers around the globe. The weapons seemed designed to cause maximum destruction while leaving the basic infrastructure intact. Whole city blocks disappeared in seconds, but power plants, factories, and transportation hubs remained untouched. "They're not trying to destroy everything," Dr. Stone realized as he watched the attack patterns. "They want the planet's resources and infrastructure. This is an invasion, not annihilation." Davis coordinated the global response from her position in the mountain complex. Military forces around the world had been preparing for this moment since the alien ships were first detected, but preparation could only go so far when facing technology centuries ahead of human development. The surprise came when the alien ground forces landed. Their ships descended through the atmosphere, expecting to find a demoralized and defenseless population. Instead, they encountered coordinated resistance from military forces that had spent 3 days studying their technology and developing countermeasures. In New York, Captain Ben Walker led a unit that had been equipped with experimental electromagnetic pulse weapons based on Dr. Stone's research. When the first alien soldiers emerged from their landing craft, they found their advanced equipment failing at crucial moments. Their shields flickered and died, their weapons overheated, their communication systems filled with static. "It's working," Walker reported over his radio. "The EMP weapons are disrupting their gear, but we need to move fast. They're adapting to our interference." Around the world, similar scenes played out as human forces engaged the invaders. In London, engineers had converted construction equipment into improvised weapons platforms. In Tokyo, scientists worked with military forces to analyze captured alien equipment in real time. In Moscow, hackers attempted to break into alien communication networks using techniques developed for Earthbound cyber warfare. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to follow the expected patterns. Previous conquests had involved overwhelming displays of power that caused immediate surrender. Earth's defenders responded to overwhelming power with improvisation, adaptation, and coordinated counterattacks. Fleet Commander Thax watched the battle reports with growing disbelief. His forces should have secured 3 major cities by now. Instead, they were bogged down in street-to-street fighting against enemies who seemed to learn new tactics by the hour. Human forces were capturing alien equipment and putting it to use, almost immediately. "Sir, we're receiving reports of equipment failures across multiple landing zones," Admiral Corvin reported. "The humans appear to be using some form of electronic warfare against our systems." "Impossible," Thax replied, but doubt crept into his voice. "Their technology cannot affect our equipment." "Perhaps not directly, but they seem to be finding vulnerabilities we did not anticipate. Ground Commander Vox reports that human forces are using our own weapons against us. They're reverse engineering our technology faster than our intelligence suggested was possible. The battle for Earth was less than 6 hours old, but already it was clear that this would not be the quick conquest the hegemony had planned. Human. Resistance was fierce, coordinated, and innovative. More importantly, it was working. Colonel Davis received reports from around the globe as the first day of fighting drew to a close. Human forces had lost ground in most areas, but they had also learned valuable information about alien capabilities and weaknesses. The invaders were powerful, but they were not invincible. "Dr. Stone, what's your assessment?" she asked. "They're vulnerable," the scientist replied. "Their technology is advanced, but it's also rigid. They don't seem to adapt as quickly as we do. If we can keep learning and changing our tactics faster than they can respond, we might have a chance." The abandoned factory had become an unlikely laboratory where the future of humanity was being decided. Dr. Richard Stone knelt beside a partially disassembled alien weapon, his hands moving carefully among the strange components that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Around him, engineers and scientists from a dozen countries worked together, sharing discoveries that would have taken years to develop under normal circumstances. "The power source is incredible," muttered Dr. Lisa Chen, a physicist who had arrived from Beijing just 2 days earlier. "It's like they've found a way to tap directly into quantum fluctuations. The energy output is beyond anything we've achieved." Stone nodded, pointing to a small crystal component that glowed with soft blue light. "And look at this targeting system. It doesn't just aim at what you point it toward. It predicts where your target will be and adjusts automatically. But the really interesting part is how simple the interface is, almost like they designed it for different species to use." 2 weeks had passed since the invasion began, and the war had settled into a pattern that frustrated both sides. The hegemony controlled the major cities and transportation hubs, but human resistance fighters controlled the countryside and industrial areas. More importantly, every day brought new innovations as human engineers learned to understand and improve upon alien technology. Captain Ben Walker crept through the ruins of downtown Chicago, leading a strike team equipped with weapons that would have been impossible to imagine a month ago. His rifle was built around a captured alien power core, but the targeting system was pure human engineering. The combination gave him firepower that could penetrate alien armor while maintaining the reliability that human soldiers demanded. "Target building is 2 blocks ahead," whispered Sergeant Torres through the communication system they had built using alien technology and human software. "Intelligence says they're holding about 50 civilians in there for work details." Walker studied the alien facility through binoculars that had been modified with captured sensors. The building was surrounded by energy barriers and guarded by soldiers in advanced armor. 3 weeks ago, this would have been an impossible mission. Today, it was just another day's work. "Remember the drill," he told his team. "EMP grenades first to disrupt their shields. Then we move fast before they can adapt." Lisa's team says their backup systems take about 30 seconds to restart. The attack began with coordinated electromagnetic pulses that overloaded the alien defensive systems. Human soldiers moved through the gaps in their defenses, using tactics that the invaders still struggled to understand. Instead of direct assault, the humans used misdirection. Instead of holding ground, they struck fast and disappeared. Instead of fighting fair, they fought smart. The prisoners were freed in less than 10 minutes. As Walker's team prepared to withdraw, they gathered intelligence and equipment from the alien facility. Every raid provided new technology and new understanding of how the invaders operated. Lieutenant Nina Volkov had become something of a legend among the resistance fighters. The former computer programmer had spent the past 2 weeks learning to hack alien communication systems using techniques that combined human creativity with alien processing power. Her small team operated from hidden locations, intercepting enemy communications and feeding intelligence to resistance cells worldwide. "I'm in their tactical network again," she announced to her team as her fingers moved across a keyboard that connected to alien computing systems. "They're planning a major push against the London defense groups tomorrow morning. But look at this. They're also requesting reinforcements from their home fleet." The implications were obvious to everyone in the room. The hegemony had expected Earth to surrender within days. The fact that they needed reinforcements meant the invasion was not going according to plan. "Can we intercept those reinforcement requests?" asked Tom, a former network administrator who had become one of Volkov's most trusted assistants. "Better than that," she replied with a grim smile. "I can alter them. Their communication protocols are incredibly sophisticated, but they assume no one else can access their networks. They don't have very good security because they never needed it before." Fleet Commander Thax stared at the battle reports with growing frustration. His forces still controlled the major strategic points on Earth, but they were bleeding resources and personnel at an alarming rate. Human resistance fighters appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating effectiveness, and vanished before hegemony forces could respond. "Our casualties are 3 times higher than projected," Admiral Corvin reported. "And the humans are using our own equipment against us with increasing effectiveness. Ground Commander Vox estimates they're reverse engineering our technology at a rate we've never encountered." "How is this possible?" Thax demanded. "Their initial technology was primitive. How can they be adapting our systems so quickly?" "Intelligence suggests they're sharing information globally at unprecedented speed. Instead of individual research teams, they appear to have created a planet-wide network of scientists and engineers working together. Discoveries made in one location are being implemented worldwide within hours." Thax studied the tactical displays that showed the current state of the invasion. His forces held the cities, but human resistance controlled vast areas of the countryside. Supply lines were constantly under attack. Communication networks were being infiltrated and disrupted. Most concerning of all, his soldiers were reporting equipment failures and system malfunctions at increasing rates. "Sir, there's something else," Corvin continued carefully. "We're detecting modifications to our own equipment. The humans aren't just using our technology. They're improving it. Some of the weapons they've captured are now more effective than our original designs." The fleet commander felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest: doubt. Every previous invasion had followed predictable patterns. Initial resistance, demonstration of superior power, gradual demoralization of the enemy, final surrender. Earth's defenders seemed to be following a different script entirely. Dr. Stone stood in what had once been a university lecture hall, now converted into a briefing room for resistance leaders from around the world. The walls were covered with diagrams and schematics that showed the inner workings of alien technology, but many of the designs were marked with human modifications and improvements. "We've made breakthroughs in 3 key areas," he announced to the assembled group of military commanders and scientists. "First, we understand their power systems well enough to build our own versions. Second, we've cracked their communication protocols and can monitor most of their tactical discussions. Third, and most importantly, we've learned to modify their equipment to work better than their original designs." Colonel Davis, who had become the unofficial coordinator of global resistance efforts, studied the reports that had come in from around the world. Human forces were not just surviving, they were beginning to win individual battles against technologically superior enemies. "What about their space-based assets?" she asked. "That's our next target," Dr. Stone replied. "We've captured enough equipment to build our own spacecraft. Not as advanced as theirs, but good enough to reach their orbital platforms. If we can take control of even one of their ships, we can turn their own superior firepower against them, Captain." Walker entered the briefing room, still wearing the modified alien armor he had taken from his latest raid. "Ma'am, we just received intelligence from Nina's team. The aliens are having supply problems. Their reinforcement requests aren't getting through properly, and their resupply missions are being delayed. Sabotage? Davis asked. Walker grinned. The best kind. Nina's been editing their messages. Every time they request ammunition, she changes it to food supplies. Every time they request reinforcements, she changes the coordinates. Their own communication system is working against them. Around the room, resistance leaders began to smile as they realized what this meant. The hegemony had come to Earth expecting easy conquest. Instead, they were fighting an enemy that learned faster than they could adapt, fought smarter than they could counter, and refused to surrender no matter how dire the situation appeared. The asteroid mining station had been abandoned for 3 years, but now it hummed with activity as human engineers performed what many considered impossible. Commander Alex Reed floated in the zero-gravity environment, watching as his team made final modifications to their captured alien spacecraft. The vessel had been rebuilt with human innovations that its original designers never could have imagined. Propulsion systems are online, reported Chief Engineer Maria Santos, her voice echoing through the converted mining facility. The modifications to their engine design have increased efficiency by nearly 40%. Their original engineers were brilliant, but they were also conservative. Reed smiled as he studied the hybrid spacecraft that represented humanity's first real step beyond Earth's atmosphere since the invasion began. The ship combined alien technology with human creativity, resulting in something that was more capable than either species could have built alone. "What about weapons systems?" he asked. "Even better news," Santos replied. "We've integrated their energy weapons with our targeting systems. Their original weapons were powerful but had trouble with fast-moving targets. Our modifications allow for predictive targeting and rapid-fire capability." 6 weeks had passed since the invasion began, and the war had transformed into something neither side had expected. Human resistance forces no longer simply defended their territory. They hunted alien forces throughout the solar system. Supply ships, communication relays, and isolated outposts had all become targets for increasingly bold human operations. Lieutenant Nina Volkov worked from a hidden command center deep beneath the ruins of Prague, surrounded by equipment that represented the marriage of human and alien technology. Her team had evolved from simple hackers into the nervous system of a global resistance network. Every alien communication was monitored, decoded, and often redirected for human purposes. "I'm tracking 3 supply convoys heading toward Earth," she announced to her team. "One carrying ammunition, one carrying replacement equipment, and one carrying something the translation algorithms identify as pacification devices." "Pacification devices?" asked her assistant Tom, looking up from his own console. "Based on the context. Probably some kind of weapon designed to break human morale. Gas weapons, psychological warfare systems, something like that." Nina's fingers moved across her modified alien interface with practiced ease. "But here's the interesting part. All 3 convoys are using the same communication codes we cracked last week. That meant human forces could intercept the convoys before they reached Earth. More importantly, it meant they could capture the advanced equipment those ships carried and turn it against the hegemony forces." Commander Reed received Nina's intelligence report as his strike team prepared for their first space-based operation. The plan was ambitious, even by human standards: intercept an alien supply convoy, capture their ships, and use the vessels to attack hegemony installations throughout the solar system. "Remember, we want to capture as much as possible," Reed told his crew as they strapped into their modified alien spacecraft. "Every piece of equipment we take is one less weapon they can use against Earth, and one more tool we can use against them." The hybrid ship accelerated out of the asteroid belt, its engines running silent to avoid detection. Human modifications to alien stealth technology made the vessel nearly invisible to hegemony sensors. The irony was not lost on Reed that they were using the enemy's own technology to hunt them. Fleet Commander Thax stood before the holographic display in his command center, but the confident alien who had planned Earth's conquest was gone. In his place was a frustrated military leader watching his invasion force slowly disintegrate. Supply lines were under constant attack. Communication networks were compromised. Ground forces were requesting evacuation from what should have been secure positions. "The humans have taken 4 more orbital installations," Admiral Corvin reported grimly. "They're using our own weapons platforms against us. Our defensive positions are becoming their offensive positions." "How many ships have we lost?" Thakex asked, though he already knew the answer would not be good. 7 ships destroyed, 3 captured intact. The captured vessels have been modified and are now operating against us. Intelligence reports suggest the humans are reverse engineering our systems faster than we can develop countermeasures. Thakex studied the tactical display that showed the current positions of all hegemony forces in the Earth system. What had once been a dominant occupation force was now scattered and defensive. Human forces controlled increasing amounts of space around their home planet, and they were beginning to venture beyond Earth's immediate vicinity. "Sir, we're receiving reports from other sectors," Corvin continued. "Human communication signals have been detected in the Proxima system. They're somehow transmitting information to other worlds under hegemony control." The implications hit Thax like physical blows. The humans were not content to simply defend their own world. They were inspiring resistance movements throughout the galaxy. The hegemony's empire depended on the belief that resistance was futile. If that belief was shattered, rebellions could spread to dozens of worlds. Commander Reed's strike team achieved complete surprise when they intercepted the alien supply convoy. The hegemony ships were expecting safe passage through their own controlled space. Instead, they found themselves under attack from vessels that looked familiar, but fought with tactics no hegemony commander had encountered. "Target their engines first," Reed commanded, as his ship closed with the lead supply vessel. "We want to capture these ships, not destroy them." The battle was brief but decisive. Human modifications to alien weapons technology gave Reed's forces superior firepower and accuracy. More importantly, human tactics confused the alien crews who had been trained to fight other hegemony-style forces, not opponents who attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. "All 3 ships captured," reported Weapons Officer David Kim. "Minimal damage to their cargo holds. We've got enough supplies here to equip resistance forces for months." But the real prize was not the supplies. It was the ships themselves. Each captured vessel could be modified and added to humanity's growing space fleet. More importantly, each capture provided new intelligence about hegemony technology and operations. Dr. Richard Stone received the first samples of alien pacification devices with scientific curiosity and growing alarm. The devices were sophisticated psychological weapons designed to induce despair and submission in enemy populations. They had been used successfully on dozens of worlds to break the will of resistance movements. "These are incredibly advanced," he reported to Colonel Davis during their daily briefing. "They use a combination of electromagnetic fields and airborne chemicals to affect brain chemistry. The psychological effects would be devastating to most species." "Would be?" Davis asked, noting his choice of words. "Human brain chemistry is different from most species the hegemony has encountered," Stone explained. "These devices are calibrated for species that respond to fear and despair by becoming passive. Humans respond to fear and despair by becoming angry." The implications were staggering. Not only were the alien pacification devices useless against humans, they might actually increase human resistance by making people more aggressive and determined. Lieutenant Nina Volkov made her most important discovery while analyzing communication intercepts from the captured supply ships. Hidden among routine military messages were desperate requests for reinforcements from hegemony commanders throughout the galaxy. "They're losing control of multiple systems," she reported to resistance leaders worldwide. "The rebellion isn't just limited to Earth anymore. At least 6 other worlds are reporting active resistance movements. And look at these communication patterns. They're using human-developed tactics." Colonel Davis studied the intelligence reports with amazement. Humanity's resistance to the hegemony invasion had inspired other species to rise up against their oppressors. The war that had begun as an attempt to conquer Earth had become a galaxy-wide rebellion against the hegemony empire. "How long before their reinforcements arrive?" she asked. Nina smiled grimly as she pulled up another set of intercepted messages. "That's the beautiful part. Their reinforcements aren't coming. Every time they send a request for additional forces, those forces are needed to deal with new rebellions elsewhere. The more they try to reinforce their position here, the weaker they become everywhere else." Commander Reed's growing space fleet launched their most ambitious operation yet, a coordinated strike against hegemony installations throughout the solar system. Using captured alien ships and hybrid human-alien technology, his forces attacked enemy positions that had been considered impregnable just weeks earlier. The tide of war had not just turned, it had reversed completely. The species that had come to conquer Earth found themselves being hunted through their own space by an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. The ancient Senate chamber on Hegemony Prime had stood for over 1,000 years, witnessing the rise of an empire that spanned hundreds of star systems. Today, it bore witness to something unprecedented in galactic history: the collapse of that same empire at the hands of a single world's resistance movement. Supreme Chancellor Vorth sat in his ceremonial chair, surrounded by holographic displays that showed the catastrophic state of hegemony territory. Red warning lights blinked across dozens of star systems where rebellion had broken out. Communication networks were failing. Supply lines had been severed. Military commanders were requesting immediate evacuation from worlds they had controlled. "For decades, the situation is beyond critical," reported Defense Minister Krulex, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. 17 core systems are in open rebellion. Our forces are cut off in 43 sectors. The humans have shared their tactical innovations with every resistance movement in the galaxy. Chancellor Vorth studied the reports with the growing realization that his empire was dying. The humans had done something no conquered species had ever accomplished. They had not only defeated their conquerors, but had inspired a galaxy-wide uprising that was tearing the hegemony apart from within. "How did this happen?" he demanded. "One primitive world, one species that barely achieved spaceflight. How did they destroy an empire that has existed for a millennium?" Commander Alex Reed stood on the bridge of his flagship as the human fleet approached Hegemony Prime. The ship had begun as a captured alien vessel, but months of modifications had transformed it into something uniquely human. The bridge crew was a mixture of former Earth military personnel and liberated aliens from dozens of worlds who had joined the resistance movement. Approaching the outer defense perimeter, reported Navigation Officer Lisa Park, a former commercial pilot who had become one of humanity's most skilled space navigators. "I'm reading defensive positions around the major moons, but they're not in standard hegemony formation." Reed studied the tactical display, noting how the alien defensive positions seemed scattered and desperate rather than coordinated and confident. "They're not expecting us to attack them in their home system. They're expecting us to defend Earth and leave them alone." Chief Engineer Maria Santos looked up from her station with a grim smile. "Sir, we're receiving surrender signals from 3 defensive platforms. They're offering to stand down in exchange for safe passage to neutral territory." The irony was not lost on anyone present. The mighty hegemony, which had conquered hundreds of worlds through superior firepower and ruthless efficiency, was now pleading for mercy from the primitive humans they had tried to enslave. Dr. Richard Stone worked frantically in his laboratory, aboard the flagship, putting the finishing touches on humanity's most ambitious project yet. The device before him combined alien technology with human innovation to create something that had never existed before: a universal translator that could broadcast human tactical knowledge directly into the minds of any intelligent species. "This should allow us to share everything we've learned with resistance movements throughout the galaxy simultaneously," he explained to Colonel Davis over the communication link. Combat techniques, technology modifications, organizational strategies, everything that made our resistance successful. Davis nodded from her position in the Earth Command Center, which had evolved from a desperate defensive position into the coordination hub for a galactic liberation movement. How many worlds can you reach? Based on the communication networks we've captured from hegemony ships, potentially hundreds. Every world that has ever been conquered by the hegemony, every species that has been enslaved, every resistance movement that has been crushed, they'll all receive the same information that allowed us to turn the tide. Fleet Commander Thax made his final stand in the orbital shipyards above Hegemony Prime, but his heart was no longer in the fight. The alien who had confidently planned Earth's conquest 3 months earlier was now a broken leader watching his civilization crumble. His remaining ships were outnumbered by liberated vessels crewed by the very species the hegemony had oppressed for centuries. "Sir, Admiral Corvin is requesting permission to negotiate surrender terms," his communications officer reported. Thax closed his 3 eyes and considered the request. Pride demanded that he fight to the last ship, but responsibility for his remaining crew demanded that he accept the inevitable. "Open a channel to the human commander," he ordered. Commander Reed appeared on the main screen, flanked by representatives from a dozen different species that had joined the liberation movement. Behind him, Reed could see hegemony officers working, alongside their former enemies, sharing technical knowledge and coordinating the peaceful transition of power. "Fleet Commander Thax," Reed said formally, "I believe you wish to discuss terms." "Unconditional surrender," Thax replied simply. "My remaining forces will stand down immediately. We ask only for the safety of our personnel and civilians." Reed nodded respectfully. Despite everything that had happened, he recognized that Thax was a military professional who had been following the orders of his government. "Surrender accepted. Your personnel will be treated according to the standards we would want applied to our own people." The formal end of hostilities was broadcast throughout the galaxy, but the real work was just beginning. Liberation was only the first step. Rebuilding a galaxy torn apart by centuries of oppression would take much longer. Colonel Amy Davis found herself in the unexpected position of Earth's first galactic defense commander, a title that had been created just days earlier. She stood in what had once been the hegemony's central command facility, now converted into the headquarters of the new galactic cooperative. Around her, former enemies worked together to coordinate relief efforts for dozens of devastated worlds. "The medical supplies are being distributed to the Altair system," reported Dr. Stone, who had traded his laboratory for an administrative role coordinating humanitarian aid. "The artificial plague the hegemony used to control that world is finally being cured using modified versions of their own medical technology." Davis nodded, checking another item off the seemingly endless list of worlds that needed assistance. The hegemony had ruled through fear and oppression, leaving behind a galaxy full of damaged civilizations that were struggling to rebuild. Earth's role had evolved from resistance fighters to galactic peacekeepers almost overnight. Lieutenant Nina Volkov, now promoted to Director of Galactic Communications, managed the complex task of coordinating information flow between hundreds of worlds. Her team had grown from a small group of hackers to a diverse organization that included representatives from every liberated species. "We're receiving reports from the Outer Rim territories," she announced. "The former hegemony worlds are establishing their own governments, but they're requesting technical assistance and economic support. They want to join the cooperative, but they need help rebuilding their infrastructure." The transformation had happened faster than anyone could have imagined. What began as Earth's desperate fight for survival had become a galaxy-wide movement toward cooperation and mutual aid. The harsh military structure of the hegemony was being replaced by voluntary associations of free worlds working together for common benefit. Captain Ben Walker, now commanding his own ship in the new interspecies Defense Force, received reports from patrol missions throughout former hegemony space. His crew included humans, former hegemony personnel, and liberated aliens working together to maintain peace and security. No signs of organized resistance to the new order, he reported during his daily briefing. Most former hegemony military personnel are either requesting to join the defense force or asking for transportation to neutral worlds where they can start new lives. The success of the transition surprised even the humans who had engineered it. The species that had seemed so ruthlessly efficient as conquerors were proving to be remarkably adaptable as partners in a cooperative venture. Many hegemony citizens had been trapped in an oppressive system just as much as the worlds they had conquered. Commander Reed established the Galactic Technology Exchange in the former hegemony research facilities, creating a center where all species could share scientific knowledge freely. The combination of hegemony advanced technology with human innovation and creativity from dozens of other species was producing breakthroughs that none of them could have achieved alone. We're seeing developments in faster-than-light communication that should allow instant contact between any worlds in the galaxy, he reported to the Cooperative Council. Medical technology that can treat diseases we didn't even know existed. Environmental restoration systems that can repair ecological damage from centuries of exploitation. Dr. Stone presented his most important discovery to the Council during their weekly session. Representatives from over 200 worlds gathered. In the chamber that had once hosted hegemony war planning sessions, now converted into a forum for peaceful cooperation. We've identified the fundamental flaw in the hegemony system, he announced. Their technology was advanced, but it was designed for control rather than cooperation. Everything was built to maintain hierarchy and prevent innovation from lower levels. When humans started modifying their equipment, we weren't just improving the technology, we were changing the entire philosophy behind it. The implications were profound. Human modifications to alien technology had not just made it more effective, they had made it more democratic. Instead of weapons designed to control populations, the new technology enabled communication and cooperation. Instead of systems that reinforced existing power structures, the innovations encouraged equality and shared decision-making. 5 years after the invasion that was supposed to enslave Earth, former Fleet Commander Thax stood in his garden on a peaceful world in the Outer Rim territories. He had been granted asylum by the Galactic Cooperative after providing valuable intelligence about remaining hegemony holdouts. His former enemies had become his neighbors, and he found the transition less difficult than he had expected. A communication device in his pocket chimed softly, indicating an incoming message from Earth. The device was a perfect example of the new galaxy. It combined hegemony communication technology with human interface design and artistic elements, contributed by 6 different species. Thax, this is Colonel Davis, the message began. We're organizing a memorial ceremony for all the casualties of the war, both human and hegemony. Your insights into your people's cultural traditions would be valuable for honoring your fallen soldiers appropriately. Thax smiled as he composed his reply. The humans had done something unprecedented in galactic history. They had won a war and then invited their former enemies to help design the peace. It was exactly the kind of impossible thing that humans seem to specialize in. The memorial ceremony took place simultaneously on hundreds of worlds, with representatives from every species that had been affected by the war. The design was uniquely human in its approach. Instead of celebrating victory over the hegemony, it honored all those who had died and committed to building a future where such conflicts would not be necessary. Commander Reed, now serving as Earth's representative to the Galactic Council, delivered the closing address to the galaxy-wide audience. 3 months ago, the hegemony came to Earth expecting to find another world to conquer, he said. Instead, they found a species that refuses to accept that conquest is inevitable. But the real victory was not military. It was the discovery that cooperation is more powerful than domination, that diversity makes us stronger, and that freedom is worth fighting for. The ceremony concluded with the dedication of the Galactic Peace Monument, a structure that incorporated materials and artistic elements from every world in the cooperative. At its center was a simple plaque with words written in hundreds of languages. Invading Earth was step 1. Learning to live together was step 2. Building a better galaxy is step 3. As representatives from across the galaxy returned to their homeworlds, they carried with them not just the memory of humanity's impossible victory, but the knowledge that sometimes the greatest triumphs come not from defeating your enemies, but from turning them into friends. The galaxy was no longer divided between conquerors and conquered. It had become a community of free worlds working together toward a future that none of them could have imagined alone.